Welcome to Wayne's World. I'm Wayne Dawson. They are two of the best-known reporters in all of Northeast Ohio, holding people accountable and unearthing details like no one else can. But outside of work, they're married, and they keep up with their grown children and their two loving cats. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the I-Team, Ed and Peggy Gallek. This is where I need an applause track so we can.
Oh, that's it.
First of all, thank you guys. You guys are so busy, and I count it a pleasure to be able to talk to you.
Oh, we appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, thank
Absolutely.
you so much.
First of all, let me ask you this. How does it feel being the latest in the long legacy of Fox 8 I-Team reporters? You know, I-Team at Fox 8, it's been around. I've been here 45 years. It was here when I got here. Wow. And you guys are the latest. How does that feel?
It is an honor.
Yeah.
It is such an honor, you know, to have, we had Tom Merriman, we had Carl Monday, Lori Taylor, and they were so great. And it's so great to be able to carry on the work that they did.
And so it's challenging because you want to live up to that standard.
Now, let me ask you this. Your work is a little different than theirs. I remember, you know, the Tom Merriman and Carl Monday would take them months to do stories. But you guys are like churning them out 2 and 3 times, you know, every day, sometimes 2 or 3 stories a day. How do you do that? And plus, do you guys have anybody to back you up? Because they used to have like staffs. Right. But is it just you two? How do you guys do so much?
It's just us and our cats. It's just us, and we're working a lot. But you don't have that luxury that you used to have to spend time on a story.
Okay.
Because today with social media, you have so many reporters, you have so many people putting stuff out all the time that it is a 24/7 cycle. So you have to keep up with it. So you don't have that luxury. Well,
to really dig into stuff. And,
Or this is a great story. Let's hold it for a couple weeks because it's not going to hold. It's going to go out.
Somebody's going to break it.
That's right. That's just the way everything is right now. So you have to be on top of it all the time. And you know, sometimes we joke, it's like you can't take that hour off to, you know, just relax because something might happen. So you got to be ready.
At the same time, you know, the industry has changed. And back in the day, people watching the 6 o'clock news, as it was only there at 6 o'clock years ago, they would sit through a 10-minute story. And now, as Peggy said, with social media and everything else out there, attention spans have gone like this. And so most stories are shorter and they're more focused, and so there's less of an appetite for those long-term
stories,
magazine-style investigative stories.
I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Let me ask you this. You guys have been in the business for a while. And how long have you been in TV?
In TV, this is, well, I will be 40 years in TV this coming August, but 30 years in Cleveland.
30 years in Cleveland. What about you, Peggy?
I've been 12 years here at Fox 8, and then I was about 20 years in Youngstown. At a newspaper for 15 of that, and then the other time I was at the Next Star station in Youngstown.
Talk about the transition from print to television.
It's a lot more difficult than you think it is, because when you're in print, you think, oh, TV is so easy because the stories seem quicker. And that's not true, because in TV, you have to convince somebody to talk to you on camera, which is a lot harder than just having somebody talk to you over the phone and you write down what they say. And for TV, you have to think of the video. What can I show to show this story? So there are a lot of stories that do great in print, but don't do great on TV.
Now, how did that work for you? Oftentimes, you know, people who are in newspaper very seldom switch over to TV. How did that work for you in Youngstown?
Well, I had a news director that I had worked with as a reporter. Then he became news director at the Youngstown station. And he said, I really need a reporter like you that digs. I need you to come on. So I went over and he said, don't worry, we'll train you. Okay, so he said, you'll get 2 weeks training. Well,
2 weeks?
Yeah, but my first day, 2 weeks went down to like an hour and a half because my first day I had a package, I had a live shot, and I had 2 VOSOTs. So if anybody knows, a VOSOT is like a short version of a story where you have some video and you have some sound, and they're different stories than what your package is, which is your longer story. So it was a very busy day, and my first live shot was absolutely awful.
The first live shots are something else.
It's never as bad as it feels.
And then, oh yes, it was. And then when you have kids at home that are teenagers that are watching, you know, my son calls me, goes, you have to stop with that crazy eye thing.
Are you serious?
That's
The
right.
kids can be the worst critics.
That's
I
right.
remember years ago.
I'll tell you.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say one point I'll make is that you talk about that transition that Peggy made from print to TV, and she's able to do it. And I'm not just saying this because of who we are,
Right, right.
but she's just a journalist at heart.
Yes,
And if you have, it's almost like in sports. I play this position, you could never play that position. Well, if you're an athlete and you're a student of the game, you could certainly do it. And that's why she's able to do it.
Did you start out as an investigative reporter when you worked for the newspaper in Youngstown?
Well, at the newspaper, you kind of did both all the time. You did stories like you had to cover a lot of meetings, but then they would want you to kind of dig into that, a couple things that maybe were controversial at the meetings. So you did start to learn that.
Yeah.
And you learned right away that a lot of times people don't want to give you the information. So there was actually a police chief that was under indictment in Cleveland. And at this time, things weren't online. We didn't have, this is way back in the dark ages. So we didn't have the internet. So we were trying to get that information.
What did we do without the internet?
I know. and one of the officers who really wanted the story to come out because he wanted the people in the township to know what was going on, he gave me all the information. He said, you have to ask the chief. And I was putting it off. Like today, I would have gone right in there.
Right.
And he said, listen, do you want to be a reporter? If you want to be a reporter, you go in there and ask the
How important are those contacts?
So important.
So
important because we're only as good as our sources and the people that give us information. So we can't know everything that's going on, right? So if people don't tell us or don't say, hey, you need to look at this, we're not going to know.
Even if we're just out on a nice day, one of our biggest Brown stories that we broke during this whole saga over the team leaving happened because of somebody we ran into when we went to the Guardians game, and it was just an offhand comment. And we looked at each other and said, we got to check that out. And next thing you know, we got home, we made some calls, and Monday morning we had a story.
And how does it feel when you break a story, man? How do you guys feel about it?
It's such an adrenaline rush, and that's kind of what you want to be able to break the story. You want to be able to inform people because that's the biggest thing. That's why you want to be a journalist, is to let people know what's going on. So when you're able to get that information and to get it out first, especially in a market like Cleveland, it's just great.
And how did you get into TV?
Well, I actually went to a small school in Pennsylvania that nobody ever heard of. Kutztown University,
Really?
K-U-T-Z,
Okay, is it still
T-O-W-N.
Okay.
It's in central Pennsylvania, in Amish country. You'd walk out of your dorm in the morning and smell manure.
Are you from Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they had the reason I went there was because I looked at a few colleges, and they had a great amount of new TV equipment.
Okay.
And I thought, well, this is really cool. So they actually let the younger students, touch the equipment and get used to it. And as most schools do, they had your little news program and your little sports program. And so,
you did all that stuff in school.
Right.
What made you? Did you always want to be an investigative reporter, or what was your dream when you stepped in the door?
I wanted to be first of all, I wanted to be a baseball player, and I soon realized that by the time I got to high school, that wasn't looking so great. But I thought I'd be a sports announcer.
Me too.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
And I'll bet maybe the same thing happened to you. I get to college, and I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to announce the football games, I'm going to do this, and there's a line of people way in front of me. And there was nobody in line to be the news guy.
Okay.
So I went, I'll try that.
Okay.
And I just never looked back.
Okay, now your first job was where?
My first job was in the Johnstown Altoona market. So I worked for this is how old I am.
You're not old.
I worked for the Altoona station, but I was in Johnstown. I was the Johnstown Bureau reporter.
Okay.
45 minutes. We had to drive our story to the station every day, which meant you had a 45-minute drive back empty-handed at the end of when you should have been done and going home. Yeah. So you drive your story there, and then 45 minutes going home, and then you could have your night.
And then you could. So how did you make your way to Cleveland?
Well, I think one thing led to another. Somebody I had gone to school with helped me get a job in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Harrisburg, absolutely.
And then a guy who was a consultant, a news consultant for that station in Harrisburg, helped me get a job in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
So I spent 5 years in Charlotte, and a lot of people said, wait a minute, you left Charlotte
to go to
come to Cleveland? When you look at the weather in Charlotte, it was beautiful year round.
Were you an investigative reporter down there?
I started there.
Okay.
I started doing that. I was kind of like the general assignment guy half the time, and once in a while they wanted me to do an investigative story. So I was starting to learn how to walk in that direction.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, so after 5 years in Charlotte, a fella here in Cleveland who I had done an internship with when he had been at another station hired me here.
Okay, and you were hired at a competing station.
Correct.
And you made your way to Fox 8. You've been here how many years now?
12. 13.
13. You've been here?
Almost 11.
11 years. Okay. First of all, when it comes to investigative reporting, is it personal? A lot of people early on with Mayor Bill, people thought that was personal. Is it personal with you guys when you do your stories, when you do what you do?
No. You know, we want to do the story, and you want to do the story correctly. So to do that, you need to get both sides. So a lot of times I think, you know, maybe the mayor or anybody might think, oh, they're driving me crazy. They won't quit calling or they keep showing up. But it's because we're trying to get their side. We got a job to do. Right. And we just want to get that other side out, you know, and the mayor is talking to us now. It's great, so we can get his side and we can get council's side. So it's really.
I think that may have been just him being new on the job.
It could be. And one thing that I learned a long time ago about being fair. You just never know when you're going to run into somebody again. And I'll give you a good example. This was a couple of markets ago. I think I was in Charlotte, and we did a story about some local police chief who had some kind of controversy. So we do that story and did it as fairly as we could. A couple months later, I'm at a banquet. They said, here's your seat. And guess who I was sitting next to?
That police chief.
That police chief. And he spoke to me.
Okay.
And he said, listen, I appreciated the way you handled that. And that's what you always want.
Right.
They may not like the story, but if they can at least understand why you as a journalist are doing the story, and if you do it fairly and give them ample opportunity to explain, most times, most people are reasonable enough to go,
let's do it.
Fair enough.
Do you like confrontation as a journalist? And so if some people say it's good TV, I mean, what do you think about that?
I prefer, no, I mean, I know, I prefer to kind of sit down and just talk it out with somebody and get their side without having to chase them. So I prefer that. If you have to do it, I'm in for it.
It is what it is.
But it's not my number one go-to.
It's always interesting to have a little give and take.
Okay.
But in the old days, some of the people who did investigative reporting 10, 15, 20 years ago, they would almost encourage it.
They would love it.
Stage it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, I'm going to, look, this person pushed me back. Well, that's because you pushed them first, you know? And that kind of stuff doesn't fly anymore.
Yes, yes. Why do you think it's changed?
I think people nowadays who watch the news, a lot of people say they don't watch the news. I think the people who do still watch the news, they want accurate, fair representation as much as they can. There are plenty of places on cable and other places where you can get this side or that side or no side. And so, you know, if you can just give them facts and let them draw their own conclusions, most people watching the news would prefer that.
The story that you two are most proud of, one that you look at and say, yeah, we did that was good, or do you that's almost like saying, who's your favorite child?
I know, because you know you love them all. I don't know, but the one we're most proud of, I love the work we did on the puppy mills.
I was going to say, you know, that was the first story that we did together. An investigation into puppy mills in central and really almost southern Ohio. And the news director said to us one day, we hadn't been working together. We would help each other with a phone call or a phone number here and there, but we weren't doing stories together. And one day the news director said, well, why don't you guys look into this together? I
got so much to ask you about. I always wondered about that. How do you do that, working together on a story? I mean, what kind of symmetry? How do you guys work that out?
Well, let me tell Wayne. So oftentimes he says, I still write like I'm a newspaper, right? So I'll write the story and I think, oh, this is great. And I'll send it to Ed and I get it back and he doesn't say a word. And then 15 minutes later, he says, well, send it back to you. And I don't even recognize it.
So you're the final authority when it comes to writing.
So,
Okay.
And then that's where we argue.
Yeah, okay.
We go back and forth, and then we come out with the story, and then it works out great that way.
Okay.
Even though it's a little rough patch sometimes getting to it,
Yeah.
but with both of us like that give and take.
How do you do? You do one part of the voice track. How does that work out?
That's a great question. You know, it's just natural now. When we first started doing this together, like if I weren't doing my own story and we were doing a story together, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to call this person, and then I'm going to do that, and you're going to do that. and now we just kind of look at each other and say, okay, and we both start making calls and texts and tell each other what we've done. And there was one time, this is how hand in glove it can be.
Okay.
It was a tragic situation. An officer had been shot, and it was a Saturday night, and it was in the springtime, and I'd spent all day redoing a flower bed, and Peggy had spent all day doing something else.
I think I was asleep, actually.
Yeah, and it was 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and the phone calls start coming, and we hear about this, and we start to gather a couple pieces of information, and Peggy says, I need to go down there. And I'm like, there's no sense in us. This was in Euclid.
Okay.
Right.
I said, there's no sense in us going down there. It's 11 o'clock on a Saturday night.
And as he's saying that, I'm getting dressed.
You're getting dressed.
We're not going to, I said, we're not going to get anything. There's no way we can do more on the phone here. I'm going down there. And if you don't go with me, I'll go myself. And that's code for Ed, you better shave and get in the car. And so I did, and I'm glad we went because it ended up being beneficial for covering the story that we went there. We found out some more perspective in the whole thing and, you know, ended up going there the next day. But it's just a good example.
Going to take a break, but one more question before we go to break. How did you guys begin working together? Whose idea was that?
Well, it was Andy. Andy
Okay.
Fishman, our news director, it was his idea. Back with the puppy mills.
Okay, that was it, okay.
Do it. So we still do things separate too.
Okay.
But we do a lot together because sometimes you can get more done when
right.
you have two people.
Talking with Ed and Peggy Gallek, the Fox 8 I-Team, a lot more of Fox. I almost said Fox 8 News in the morning. Oh my gosh, a lot more Wayne's World coming up. Stay with us, we'll be right back. And welcome back to Wayne's World. I am talking with the I-Team, Ed and Peggy Gallek. Once again, thank you guys for joining me today. Appreciate that. You guys just celebrated a wedding anniversary. How many years for you?
11.
11 years.
11 years.
Talk about how you guys got together. You were working, now were you working together before you got married? How did that work out?
I came from Youngstown.
Right.
It was 2012, and I'll never forget, I was in the newsroom, and Ed was working at a competing station.
Okay, so you guys knew each other before you got to Fox
Well,
8.
I did not know him. And somebody was saying, oh, Ed Gallek's tweeting this. And they're going, oh, Ed has another story. And I said, who's Ed? I remember, and I think it was Tony Garbo at the time said to me, oh, this is Ed Gallek. He's at 19. He does really good work. So I looked it up and I thought, he's kind of cute. You know, I'd like to meet him. And so then I never ran into him until it was 3 months. It was on an awful story, the shooting in with the Cleveland police officers.
137 shots. The chase, big chase.
They had a big press conference, and I was with Ali. Ali knew I wanted to meet Ed.
He knew that?
Yes, because I had told him. And you know, Ali's not shy.
You wanted to meet your competition.
Right. So, so Ali sees him, and Ali real in front of everybody. There he is, Peggy. Go meet him. Go say hi. And so, I go over. Ed's on his phone. His head is down. I said, hi, I'm Peggy. I work at Fox 8. I'm new here. I like your work. I wanted to meet you. And he never looks up from his phone. And he said, I know. I think we met before.
Okay. He never looks up.
No, never looks up. And Paul Orlowski, God bless him, he was standing right next to him. Paul goes, "Oh, he's just shy." And, I just
not one of my better moments.
Really? Okay. Are you shy? Come on, man.
No. I was just, I didn't handle that well. It was an intense day, and I just fumbled that. But the next time I saw Peggy,
he was very
I talked to her.
Which was weird. How far after that?
Probably a day or so.
Oh, just a couple of days.
Yeah.
Okay. So what? The sparks flying or what? What's going on here?
Well, that was it. We then, because of all the stories, we ended up being on a lot of stories together, so we got to know each other a lot. And then, then you join Facebook, and he saw that I collect old typewriters. I love old typewriters, so he had an old typewriter.
Okay.
So he said one Saturday, it was a random text, and I'm in North Ridgeville, and he texts me, he says, hey, I've got this old typewriter if you want to come over and take a look at it. And I said, oh yeah, I'm in the neighborhood. I was 45 minutes away. So then we had lunch, and
And
started
the rest
dating
is,
after
now
that.
you guys got, were you working here when you got, you were
No.
working, you were separate, okay.
We were separate.
Okay.
After we got married, we were still competing against each other, and it wasn't going to work.
Okay, now how was that? That was
Not
not
this
good.
business.
No, we were very competitive. There was one night, there was a big story. I was sleeping. Ed comes up and wakes me up and says, hey, check your phone. So I check my phone, I see what happened. I said, oh no, I said, did you, and then I looked at him and said, did you tweet it out already? He goes, yes. So he waited until he tweeted it out, then he woke me up. I said, okay, this isn't going to work.
That was not going to work.
Yeah,
so it's for the sake of the marriage,
that's
you
right.
you had to come to Fox 8.
He had to
Ed,
come
you
to-
were here first, and then Ed came, right?
Ed came over, and he's been here, and it's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful experience.
Some people think that you guys 24/7 are up checking your phones, you know, police radio. What's your personal life like?
Well, we don't have a police radio at home, thank goodness. But,
Thank goodness.
but we are checking our phones a lot. I'd like to say we're not, but it is a lot. But we do have we have a lot of fun too, and we get to see our family a lot.
What do you guys do in your spare time?
Sports, I love sports. I love watching football. I'm a
Peggy
huge
could
sport-
host her own sports talk
I like
show
the things that I don't
on
know, but I'm
TV or on the radio. She knows more about sports than most of the guys on ESPN, for
I know
example.
that's serious.
Yes, I'm a big
Quick-
sports fan. You know what? My parents grew up in Cleveland, West Siders,
okay.
and my dad always loved baseball, basketball, football, so he dragged me along to everything, and so I.
So you could
grew up.
easily be a sports person.
I would love it.
Oh
yes,
my God, that
yes.
may be next in your career.
That's
You
it, that's
never know.
it.
That's good stuff. What about you, Ed?
As far as what?
Just hobbies, man. Things
Oh,
you
you
do
know
at
what?
home.
I mean, I
chill.
spend a lot more time than I should working in the yard
He loves
with
his
flower
lawn.
beds and weeding and
Really? Mhm.
rearranging this and buying little stones for that. And there's always planting another tree. And so I spend more time with that than I should.
His lawn is immaculate.
Oh, really?
He loves
Nice
the lawn.
huh?
Yes,
A nice
he loves
lawn.
the
That's
lawn.
good stuff. Now you both have grown kids.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
How is that working out for you guys?
Oh.
Grandkids as well?
Really, two,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Calvin and Alice, and Calvin is 4 and Alice is 2. And they're down in Florida, though, so
Oh,
I
what
don't
part
get
of
to see them
Florida?
as much. Orlando.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah,
great
so I
area.
don't get to see them as much as I want, but they're great. And then my one son lives in San Diego, my daughter's in Orlando.
Oh, my gosh.
And then my other son, my youngest, Robert, is in Youngstown, so he's close.
Okay.
And then Sydney, Ed's daughter, is down in North Carolina.
Right.
Well,
We
you guys
see-
have places to visit on
Right.
vacation.
Right.
Yep.
Do you guys ever take any time off, man? Do you have? Do you have?
Well, we do, but
Yeah.
you know,
Even when you're on vacation, are you still?
I tell you what, the phone never stops. In fact, my parents are from the suburbs of Philadelphia, and you know, last year we went there over the Christmas break, and you know, one morning, next thing you know, we're seeing some stuff come in. It turned out to be this big incident downtown where there was a long police delay, but we started making the calls while we were
While
there
you're-
and sending
yeah.
emails, records requests, because
Yeah.
it was kind of the holiday week and all that. And you know, it's just what you have to do. I mean, you know, yes, you can put all that aside and have it all backed up for you when you come home. But again, back to what Peggy said a long time ago here today, everything is kind of like a 24/7, minute-to-minute society.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you can send something, a couple of questions to a police chief or get a public records request filed, it helps you because it just smooths the process when you actually have to.
I will say this: unlike other I-team reporters we've had here at Fox 8, you guys are in the community. Why is that important to you?
I think because you need to be in the community, one, to kind of find out what's going on, right? And then you want to make sure what you're putting out there is accurate. So if you're not part of the community, you can't know what's important to people. So I think that's why it's really important to me. We did a couple things together, you and
Yes,
I, and
yes,
I think
we
it's
have.
important to be there so
Yeah.
we know what are people interested in, what do they want to know, you know, and I think you need to just...
And really, yeah, the conversations we have when you get stopped at the grocery store
Yeah.
or maybe at one of these events like Peggy's talking about tells you so much because, you know, you might think the story you did yesterday was the best thing ever and most important, most interesting. But what people want to talk about is the one you did 2 Tuesdays ago.
Yeah.
And you're going, where did that come from? They were interested in that? And they were really interested. And sometimes people will recite back to you a line from your script.
That's crazy.
And you're
Yeah,
going,
yeah.
whoa.
Yeah, that's it. So I think, you know, to know what people care about, you need to be
You need to be out there with them.
Right.
You guys are incredible. You really are.
Oh, you are.
I'm serious. You guys are. There's so much more than what we see on TV. you know, I feel the compassion in you guys as well. So thank you so much. I know you guys are busy. You guys have to do work when you get off the air with me. You got other things to do, but thank you for stopping by.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.
I really, really do. God bless you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for joining us on another edition of Wayne's World. Remember, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, with God's help, it can achieve. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.